tale with that tale. Also, we were told by the principal we had to get married. If anyone wants to hear that story, we can share that too. These are scandalous circumstances, by the way, that nobody really remembers 24 years on that we've been together, including my mom, who used to hang up on Dan anytime he would call me when I was at home. Now, if I say one word against him, she's in my business. Debate has also given me nearly every academic interest that I've had since high school, including the seeds of my dissertation, stems from debate research that I did. Not all of these interests are good. I have an unhealthy fascination with Yeti, because when I was a freshman in college, I had to do a bunch of Yeti research when it was a Southeast Asia topic. So I have this like weird fascination with Yeti. Those are abominable snowmen, but Southeast Asia. Yes, John, yes. I also have numerous relationships with debaters that have turned into very real and deep and profound friendships. I'm lucky to have people like Kevin Hamrick, Alan Coverstone, who's not here, but is also a key. He may not be here because he jinxed us in the Green Bay game by texting us that the game was over at about 4 minutes. So I think that might be why he's not here, I don't know. It's also provided me avenue for my sense of right and wrong and social justice and injustice. It's provided me opportunities through my work with the Dallas Urban Debate Alliance. Focusing on all those really great things seemed a little bit disingenuous to me, though. It seemed like it would have been really short and sweet. I could have gotten back to coaching, because like many of you, I watch the clock during these speeches to see if my teams are going to be done before we're actually out. I also thought that it would be disingenuous because it would have been a partial sharing by me. I have a lot of respect for people who are in this room, so I really wanted to ensure that I gave it its proper due. Plus, I also figured that after 2 years of like prep time, if all I said was soulmate friends and like drop the mic, probably people would not find that a good thing. So here's a more complete sharing for what it's worth. I love debate, but I'm frustrated by the debate community. I know it goes both ways. The community gets frustrated with me, for example, when I delay tournaments because I'm coaching, but that's probably for someone else's speech. But here's why I'm a little frustrated. In the debate community, my age, my educational privilege, my argument preferences towards policy action and discussions, my coaching position for half of my life. So I've been coaching at Jesuit since I was 19. I just turned 40 last September, so I had an existential crisis when I realized this was literally half of my life. But that coaching position at the all-boys private school in Dallas kind of all adds up to most people in the community that I'm the man. I'm the old guard. But at the same moment at Jesuit, I'm a woman who is married but didn't change her name. I have a PhD. I sit on our school's diversity committee. That's work to try to address racism, bias against gay students. I'm prone to using sarcasm as a disciplining technique. I'm just a leftist rabble-rouser at Jesuit, banging her head against institutional inertia on some of these very important issues of race, gender, and sexual orientation. People joke about being lifers. I don't honestly know if I am one. I don't know if I have the ability to continue to be the man in one element of my life and the subversive in another element of my life, all while being the same person adhering to some of the same views. Perhaps more significantly, I really worry that I'm putting my debaters in exactly the same conundrum. I was just having a strategy discussion with one of my debaters the other day about some debates that he was a part of at NBA that were over identity issues. And he was really frustrated. He was frustrated by trying to reconcile his beliefs that debaters have a right to share these deep and profound moments in the debate round, and his frustration that their choice was to share these deep and profound experiences in a debate round. From his perspective, time limits of a debate round precluded meaningful sharing of racism, gender bias, heteronormativity, all things that he is very, very passionate about. He's a rabble-rouser in training at Jesuit. It made him really skeptical about the genuineness of his opponent, and that made me sad for him. And this conversation reminded me a lot of the very first identity debate that my teams were involved in at the Georgetown Round Robin in the fall of 2004. I remember it really distinctly because after the debate, which we won, one of my debaters came out. Keep in mind, I teach at the all-boys school. One of my debaters came out, and he was literally crying. And he was so just beaten these girls that had shared these ideas and these life experiences. And so he was having difficulty reconciling his outrage, his sympathy, his empathy for these girls that he had just beaten. In essence, in both of these cases and many more over the years, the debaters face a conundrum of being taught to beat somebody argumentatively while in their real lives being angered by exactly the same marginalization issues presented in the debate round. So in my view then, the problem with the use of our competitive debate rounds to address exclusion in debate is that it creates only a partial picture of the debaters, for the debaters, of the debaters, for the judges, of the judges. The timer goes off. Somebody wins and loses based on whether they presented in a technically proficient way the story of their marginalization. Or maybe they win or lose based on whether they successfully refuted somebody's marginalization. We sometimes around Jesuit call this the oppression Olympics. And my debaters don't like being a part of the oppression Olympics. Few stop to ask how their competitor might be an ally. Few stop to ask how far their activism goes at home or in their school environment. Yes, it's important to discuss these issues, but competitive debate may not be the way because it only presents a partial picture. We replicate this as coaches, I think, because of our partial pictures of each other. In some ways, though, I think it may be even worse as coaches because we judge each other not just like on our random interactions, but also on how our debaters interact with one another and with coaches. So the partial picture is even more distant from reality potentially because it's mediated through the lens of our debaters' performance. I had somebody from the college community this past summer. I taught up at DDI, and somebody from the college community that I didn't have a lot of interaction with before, so I think that meant that she felt like she could be like super honest with me. So she said that she had heard, or word on the street was, that Jesuits' program was all washed up because we hadn't been competitive, we hadn't had competitive success nationally over the last couple of years. That is factually correct that we have not had competitive success nationally, but no one has ever really asked us, like, why is that? And what about our school environment might have changed that we're having to deal with now? The answer, by the way, is that we have a sports culture at our all-boys school that's intensified quite a lot. So most of our debaters figure out that they don't fit into that sports culture sometime during their sophomore year. So most of our seniors are 2.5 or third-year debaters. By the way, I am as guilty of this partial picture judgment as anyone. I assume, for example, if you have a debater that's been an ass to one of my debaters in the debate, that you had something to do with that. But really what I should be asking myself, I'm keeping it real, people. But really what I should ask myself is, wonder if they've had to have the conversations that I've had to have with people with my debaters when they're young about how it is that they need to conduct themselves and what it means to be a Jesuit debater. And y'all have probably fought as much to try to help people to be nicer. As some of you know, I did a dissertation about how women's groups in South Africa attempt to get their political demands incorporated into legislation, given the political hegemony of the ANC. In that research, I encountered a quote that's really remained with me as a reminder of the challenges of change when you're a part of the institution that you're trying to change. Lydia Kampf, who was the founder of the rural women's movement in South Africa, put it like this: it is difficult to toy your own government. Some of you might know that toy is a form of protest dance that's associated with the anti-apartheid movement. In attempting to negotiate this newly configured relationship between the government and civil society in South Africa, women's groups were really placed in this unique position and conflicting position of trying to bring about needed change while not selling out the struggle. I think this reflects the conundrum that we sometimes have in coaching and in the debate community. It's hard to toy your own community without tearing down the hard work of others. But my central argument today is really this: if our goal is to provide a safe space for debaters to grow as people, to feel empowered, to redress marginalization that they feel based on their social locations, to raise awareness of privilege in all of its forms, to transform people's lives, to know the feeling of winning after hard work, teaching them a bit about government and philosophy, the tiny goals that we encounter every day, then we're not really remembering a central part of the community, and that's the community part. By using the competitive form exclusively these days, I think, and not other forums available to us as a community, we run the risk, I think, of teaching our students pessimism and mistrust of others' motives, not agency and collaboration with allies. We also run the risk of turning our students so far inward by focusing on arguments and debates about themselves exclusively that they forget the power that they have to change things beyond themselves. Without being too melodramatic or hyperbolic, I think this has real implications. To quote the political scientist Robert Putnam, as a sidebar, part of the reason why Robert Putnam always stays with me is that when I was in graduate school, I had an opportunity to have coffee with him. And this man, if you've ever seen a picture of him, has the largest mutton chop beard thing happening with the no mustache and the no beard thing. And it was odd to look at over coffee. But anyway, he has some great ideas. So Putnam argued that this phenomenon that he's encountered or that he was observing of political apathy is connected to a decline in social capital. And social capital he defines as the features of social organization such as networks, norms, and trust that facilitate coordination and cooperation for mutual benefit. Engagement will enhance levels of social trust and efficacy in citizenship, thereby strengthening our democracy. One of the other lasting ideas from my work on South Africa, as well as a master's degree I've been doing in conflict resolution, is the idea of Ubuntu. Ubuntu is a Zulu word that roughly translates into humanness when it's understood in terms of its use in an expression that's translated into a person is a person through other persons. Desmond Tutu, famous guy, says when talking about things like restorative justice that the central concern shouldn't be retribution or punishment, but in the spirit of Ubuntu, the healing of breaches, the redressing of imbalances, the restoration of broken relationships. We could use a little of this in the debate community, I think, but I'm a product of policy debate, old school. So just leaving you with an idea as vague as Ubuntu wouldn't really be right. So now that I've laid out my significant harms, I have some ideas that might help, or at least we might have some fun trying them. Partial pictures. Many of us interact about once a year in this room, or only at tournaments. I don't know you. We can fix that. Get to know each other as humans, not just as your jobs. Ask your neighbor, at the table that you're at, what condiment they couldn't live without. If you could go the rest of your life and you could not have a condiment, what would it be? Sunday night during prep time, when they take a lot of time, you can ask what's somebody's proudest moment in debate, or, alternatively, what reality TV show they could not live without. If you have it, these are important insights, people. If you have a few moments, ask me why the Packers represent all that is good in the world, even after last Sunday's excruciating loss. Find other sources of connection with people in the community besides your job, and it'll probably help you understand a bit better how and why the person does their job, how they do it. Start interacting with debaters about marginalization outside of debate strategy. Some of you have contributed greatly to argument innovation on these issues, but unless my teams interact with you in a debate on these issues or encounter your debaters in a round, they don't get to hear from you. It's even worse if you primarily do LD or other events, because we don't, but the issues seem to cross debate typologies. That's a loss for my debaters. I think they need to know that you care about these issues, not because they win debates, but because they are meaningful. And know that, and do that through human contact, not mediated through debate blocks or articles or posts on a listserv or other tweets, Instagram, that new Facebook thing. I forget what it's called. Maybe that contact should take the form of old school forums, circa mid-1990 workshops. I know that this works. I got an email from at 1 a.m. this summer from another one of my debaters, a different one, also a rabble-rouser in training. And he was so moved by an informal talk that Maggie had given at the workshop that he really wanted to strategize about how he could do his part, even going to an all-boys school, to address gender in debate and the way that women were treated in debate. So debaters want to talk about this, And they don't necessarily just want to talk about it in terms of how to beat other people in debates, but they also want to know how to be better people. Maybe we invite you and your debaters to come out to dinner one night at a tournament. We used to do that with a couple of schools. I don't really know why we stopped. Maybe we have a longer power match break at a tournament to invite people to talk about these issues using tools that are available in other communities, like conflict resolution communities or peer mediation and reconciliation practices that are used elsewhere around the world that are actually effective. I don't really know what the logistics looks like, which is kind of a big thing for me because usually I'm thinking about logistics, but I do know that we have talked about marginalization for a really long time, but I'm unconvinced that the competitive space is the place for that conversation. Even if the competitive space does have some role to play, I don't think it can be it. I think currently we really are having just a few conversations, but we're not having persistent long-term conversations. If we've been talking about this in debate rounds for 20 plus years, then maybe we need to supplement what we're doing with something that helps us to use the community as a force of empowerment and agency, not cynicism and disempowerment.